The Outsider. The Interstellar Defense Academy loomed against the violet sky of Centauri Prime, its crystalline towers reflecting the light of 3 moons. For centuries, the IDA had trained the galaxy's elite warriors from a dozen advanced civilizations. Today, for the first time in its history, a human would walk through its gates. Ilara Reed stood at the entrance, her breath forming small clouds in the chilly air. At 22, she had become Earth's reluctant ambassador to the stars. The United Earth Coalition had fought hard for this single position, one human among thousands of aliens who had evolved on worlds with higher gravity, toxic atmospheres, or scorching heat that had forged them into natural warriors. Cadet Reed, came a rumbling voice. You are 3 minutes early. Ilara turned to face an 8-foot-tall draconian. His scaled skin shimmered iridescent blue in the morning light, powerful muscles rippling beneath as he towered over her. Commander Thaxis, the Academy's most decorated instructor. Yes, sir, she replied, keeping her voice steady. On Earth, we say early is on time. Thaxis' reptilian eyes narrowed. On Dracos, we say humans break easily. He circled her, assessing. Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel. The others have been traversing the stars since your ancestors were living in caves. Ilara remained silent, her gaze fixed forward. She had expected this. Earth was the newest member of the Galactic Concord, admitted only after humans had demonstrated unusual ingenuity during a pirate attack on a Concord outpost. That ingenuity had earned Earth a single slot at the Academy, and Ilara had won it through a global competition that had tested both body and mind. Follow me, Thaxis commanded, leading her through massive doors that parted silently. Inside, the Academy's grand hall stretched before them. Dozens of alien species mingled, their forms diverse and intimidating. Some floated on anti-gravity fields, others moved with the fluid grace of predators. All paused to stare as Ilara entered. The human is here, whispered a Meridian, its translucent body pulsing with light patterns that served as their language. It looks so fragile, responded another, a bulky Krell with stone-like skin. Ilara ignored them, following Thaxis to a circular platform in the center of the hall. The platform illuminated as he stepped onto it. Cadets of the 527th cycle, Thaxis announced, his voice echoing. Today we welcome our final recruit, Ilara Reed of Earth. He gestured toward her without enthusiasm. The Academy Council has granted Earth this opportunity as part of the Concord's outreach to developing worlds. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Ilara caught fragments of conversation. Charity case, political gesture, will not survive the first trial. A tall, elegant Sylvan approached, her skin the color of moonlight, eyes large and entirely black. I am Lyria, she said, extending a 6-fingered hand. First rank of this cycle. Ilara shook the offered hand carefully. Pleased to meet you. I have studied your species, Lyria said, her tone clinical. Your endurance is interesting, but I wonder why they sent you instead of one of your soldiers. I am a soldier, Ilara replied. Lyria's expression shifted to something like pity. By your standards, perhaps. Before Ilara could respond, a harsh tone echoed through the hall. The cadets immediately formed lines, organized by species. Ilara stood alone. First trial begins now, announced Thaxis. Atmospheric adaptation chamber. The cadets moved with practiced efficiency toward a massive circular doorway. Ilara followed, noting that several aliens glanced back at her with what could only be described as morbid curiosity. The chamber beyond was vast and featureless, its walls gleaming metal. As the last cadet entered, the doors sealed with a hiss. The Academy trains warriors for all environments. Thaxis explained, his voice reverberating from hidden speakers. Today, we begin with toxic atmosphere simulation. Gas began to fill the room, green and heavy. The cadets' reactions varied. Some activated biological filters in their bodies, others seemed entirely unaffected. Ilara quickly pulled a compact rebreather from her belt and placed it over her mouth and nose. Mechanical assistance, Cadet read. Thaxis's voice held mockery. The others rely on natural adaptations. Humans adapt through technology, sir, she replied, her voice slightly muffled. It's our natural advantage. A few cadets exchanged glances. Ilara had scored a point in the verbal sparring, but the real test was just beginning. Increase toxicity by 40%, Thaxis ordered. The gas thickened, turning a deep emerald. Several cadets showed discomfort now. The Krell's stone-like skin began to flake. The Meridian's light patterns became erratic. Ilara's rebreather beeped a warning. It was reaching filtration capacity. She checked the readout. 15 minutes remaining at current toxicity. Physical trial begins now, Thaxis announced. The floor beneath them suddenly shifted, breaking into hundreds of hexagonal platforms that began to rise and fall at unpredictable intervals. The cadets scrambled to maintain balance, leaping between platforms as they moved. Ilara's human reflexes were quick, but the platform's movements seemed calibrated for alien physiologies, rising higher than her comfortable jumping range, falling faster than her reaction time. She missed a landing and crashed hard onto a platform, pain shooting through her shoulder. Several cadets noticed. A draconian similar to Thaxis but younger smirked. First blood to the chamber, he called out. Ilara ignored him, focusing on the rhythm of the platforms. There was a pattern, complex but detectable. After 30 seconds of observation, she began to move more confidently, anticipating the platform's shifts. Interesting, murmured Lyria, who gracefully navigated nearby. You learn quickly. Necessity, Ilara replied, leaping to another platform. The gas continued to thicken. Ilara's rebreather was now flashing red. 5 minutes of filtration remaining. Several cadets had retreated to the edges of the chamber, where emergency breathing stations were located. They had prioritized the physical challenge over atmospheric endurance. Ilara made a decision. She removed her rebreather and took a careful, shallow breath of the toxic atmosphere. It burned her lungs like fire, but she had trained for this, spending months exposing herself to gradually increasing toxic environments back on Earth. She couldn't match the natural filtration systems of the aliens, but she could endure longer than they expected. The young draconian who had mocked her earlier now stared in disbelief as she continued navigating the platforms without her rebreather. His momentary distraction cost him, and he stumbled, nearly falling between platforms. An hour into the trial, only half the cadets remained active. Ilara's lungs burned, her eyes watered, but she kept moving. The toxicity level had increased twice more, and her shoulder throbbed where she'd fallen. Thaxis's voice came through the speakers again. Final phase initiates now. The platforms suddenly began to emit electrical charges. Several cadets cried out as shocks jolted through them. Ilara felt the first shock hit her like a hammer, nearly sending her tumbling into the gaps between platforms. The young draconian from earlier was on a nearby platform. Human, he called, you should withdraw. Your kind isn't built for this. Ilara met his gaze, refusing to show the pain coursing through her body. Thanks for your concern, she managed, her voice hoarse from the toxic air. But I'm just getting warmed up. As if to mock her words, the platform beneath her delivered another powerful shock. Ilara felt something tear in her already injured shoulder. Blood seeped through her uniform, vivid red against the dark fabric. The draconian's eyes widened. You're bleeding. Am I? Ilara replied, jumping to another platform, as if she hadn't noticed. In truth, the pain was intense, but she had compartmentalized it, a technique taught by her instructors on Earth. Lyria, still moving with grace despite the increasing difficulty, called out, Cadet Reed, your injury requires attention. After the trial, Ilara responded, continuing to move. The final 30 minutes were a blur of pain, toxic air, and electrical shocks. When Thaxis finally announced the end of the trial, only 12 cadets remained active on the platforms. 11 aliens, and 1 human. As the platforms lowered and the gas cleared, medical staff entered the chamber. They moved first toward Ilara. Scanners extended. "Your shoulder has a level 3 tier," one medic informed her, "and your lung tissue shows toxic damage." Ilara nodded. "Can it be treated here?" The medic seemed surprised by the question. "Yes, but..." "Then I'll continue with the next trial," she stated firmly. Across the chamber, Thaxis watched with an unreadable expression. The young draconian who had mocked her approach, his earlier disdain replaced with reluctant curiosity. "I am Krex," he said. "You performed unexpectedly well for a human." "Thank you," Ilara replied, wincing slightly as the medic applied a regenerative patch to her shoulder. "Why didn't you stop when you were injured?" Krex asked. Ilara met his gaze steadily. "Because the trial wasn't over." For the first time, something like respect flickered in the alien's eyes. As Ilara was led away for further medical treatment, she noticed other cadets watching her, their expressions a mixture of reassessment and wariness. Commander Thaxis approached the medical bay later as regeneration treatments were being completed on Ilara's shoulder and lungs. "Humans are said to break easily, Cadet Reed," he remarked, studying her. "We do, sir," she replied calmly. "But we don't stay broken." Thaxis considered this. "Tomorrow's trials will be more demanding." Ilara nodded. "I look forward to it, sir." As Thaxis left, Ilara allowed herself a small smile. Day 1 at the academy, and she had survived. More importantly, she had challenged their assumptions. She wasn't just representing herself or even Earth. She was redefining what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had underestimated her species for too long. And this was only the beginning. The breaking point. Dawn broke on Centauri Prime, its light spilling through the crystalline walls of the Academy's medical bay. Ilara sat on the edge of her bed, methodically stretching her shoulder. The regenerative treatment had worked well, but a dull ache persisted, a reminder of yesterday's trial. "You should still be resting," said a voice from the doorway. Lyria entered, her movements fluid and silent. The medical eye recommended 12 more hours of recovery. "I've had 6, Ilara replied, standing. "That's enough." Lyria tilted her head, her entirely black eyes unblinking. "Is all of humanity this stubborn, or are you exceptional?" "Just average," Ilara said with a slight smile. "Maybe slightly above average stubbornness." The Sylvan studied her with scientific curiosity. "The others are discussing you. Some believe you succeeded through luck. Others think Commander Thaxis reduced the difficulty for you." Ilara pulled on her uniform jacket, concealing a wince as she worked her arm through the sleeve. "And what do you think?" "I think," Lyria said carefully, "that we know very little about humans." Before Ilara could respond, an announcement echoed through the academy. "All cadets report to Training Zone 7. Immediate deployment." Lyria's expression shifted to surprise. "Zone 7. That's the gravity well. It wasn't scheduled until next week." "They're accelerating the program for me," Ilara realized aloud. "Testing my limits. Testing your breaking point," Lyria corrected. "No human has ever trained in Zone 7. The gravity well was immediately recognizable, a massive circular pit descending into the Academy's foundation. Platforms spiraled down its interior, with various obstacles and weapon systems mounted along the walls. At the bottom, barely visible from the rim, was a small platform with what appeared to be a flag. The assembled cadets murmured among themselves as Thaxis and several other instructors arrived. Ilara noted that today there were more observers in the gallery above, senior Academy officials, and what appeared to be representatives from various worlds. Earth had sent no one. "Today's trial is simple," Thaxis announced. "Retrieve the flag from the bottom of the well. The first 3 cadets to complete this task will earn advancement points." He gestured to a control panel, and the air above the well shimmered with a holographic display showing gravity levels. Level 1, standard gravity. Level 10, 10 times standard gravity. The well progressively increases as you descend. Ilara calculated quickly. Earth's gravity was slightly lower than Centauri Prime's standard gravity. At 10 times that force, she would weigh nearly 1,000 pounds. Movement would be nearly impossible. Breathing would be a struggle. "Commander," she said, stepping forward, "what's the record for this trial?" Faxis regarded her with cool assessment. "The Academy record is held by Drex 4, who completed the trial in 7 minutes and 22 seconds. He paused. He was Krell. Their homeworld has triple standard gravity. The stone-skinned Krell cadets rumbled with pride at this mention. Has any human attempted this before? Ilara pressed. No human has reached this stage of training. Faxis replied dismissively. Begin in 30 seconds. As the cadets prepared at the edge of the well, Krex approached Ilara. You should withdraw, he said quietly. This trial has injured even draconians. Your physiology isn't designed for these pressures. I appreciate the concern, Ilara replied, checking her equipment. It isn't concern, Krex insisted. It's practical. You performed well yesterday, but this is different. Even if you survive, you'll sustain permanent damage. Ilara looked at him directly. Then I'll be permanently damaged. The starting tone sounded, and 20 cadets plunged into the well. Some used technological aids, anti-gravity boosters, or exoskeletal enhancements. Others relied on natural abilities, the meridians becoming almost liquid, flowing downward, while the Krell simply dropped like stones, their dense bodies resistant to the increasing pressure. Ilara had her own strategy. Earth's training program had taught her to use the environment rather than fight it. As gravity increased, she used controlled falls between platforms, conserving energy while maintaining speed. At 3 times standard gravity, the first cadets began to struggle. At 5 times, several activated emergency beacons and were extracted by Academy rescue teams. By level 7, only 8 remained, including Lyria, Krex, 2 Krell, a Meridian, and Ilara. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Each movement required immense effort. Ilara's vision began to narrow, blood pressure building in her head. She could feel her bones creaking under the strain. One of the Krell reached the bottom first, claiming the flag with a roar of triumph that was cut short as he collapsed, the strain too much even for his stone-like physiology. Academy medical teams rushed in to extract him. Level 8. Ilara's world narrowed to a single focus. The next platform, the next handhold, the next breath. She could see Krex ahead of her, his powerful draconian muscles training. Lyria had fallen behind, her lighter frame disadvantaged despite her grace. Reed, Krex called back, his voice strained. Stop now. Your vitals are redlining. The observers can see it. Ilara didn't waste breath responding. She pushed forward, using techniques she'd practiced on Earth, controlling her breathing, focusing her muscles, using momentum rather than direct force. Level 9. The meridian ahead of her suddenly crystallized, a defensive mechanism when under extreme stress, and had to be extracted. Krex reached for the second flag but stumbled, his leg giving way with a crack that echoed through the well. He roared in pain but refused extraction, continuing on one leg. The pain in Ilara's body had moved beyond agony to a strange, detached awareness. She knew she was being damaged, could feel microfractures forming in her bones, could sense the strain on her heart and lungs. But she kept moving. In the observation gallery, the Academy officials leaned forward in fascination. The human should have failed by now, should have broken under pressures that challenged even species evolved for high-gravity environments. Level 10. The bottom of the well. 1 flag remained. Krex was 3 meters ahead of Ilara, dragging his broken leg. Behind her, no one else had made it past level 9. Ilara's vision was tunneling, darkness creeping in from the edges. Each heartbeat felt labored. She forced herself forward, crawling now as her legs could no longer support her even on all fours. Krex reached for the flag but collapsed, his body finally surrendering to the crushing gravity. He lay just centimeters from success, his reptilian eyes fixing on Ilara as she crawled past him. Why? He managed, blood seeping from between his scales. Why continue? Ilara reached the flagpole, her fingers closing around its base. Because, she gasped, each word requiring immense effort, we don't break easily. With a final surge of will, she pulled the flag free and held it up. In the observation gallery, stunned silence gave way to urgent commands. Medical teams deployed instantly, emergency anti-gravity fields activating around both Ilara and Krex. As they were lifted from the gravity well, Ilara felt consciousness slipping away. The last thing she saw was Commander Thaxis's face, his expression no longer dismissive but thoughtful, perhaps even respectful. She woke 3 days later in the Academy's medical bay, surrounded by advanced regeneration equipment. Her entire body ached, but she was alive. According to the medical eye, she had suffered 27 microfractures, muscle tears throughout her body, and minor organ damage, all of which were being repaired. Commander Thaxis entered her room, accompanied by Lyria, and, surprisingly, Krex, who moved with a slight limp. Cadet Reed, Thaxis said formally. Your performance in the gravity well has been added to the Academy records. Time, 9 minutes, 17 seconds, significantly slower than the record, but he paused, seemingly uncomfortable with what followed, the first successful human completion. Thank you, sir, Ilara managed. The council representatives were impressed. Thaxis continued. As was I. Perhaps we have underestimated your species. Krex stepped forward. You saved my life, he said bluntly. When you took the flag, you triggered the automatic extraction. I would have died without it. Ilara met his gaze. Anyone would have done the same. No, he replied firmly. They wouldn't have. Most species would have prioritized self-preservation. Lyria nodded in agreement. It was unexpected, as was your endurance. The Academy has reviewed your performance data, Thaxis said. It appears humans possess a quality we had not adequately measured. He seemed to choose his next words carefully. Your species lacks the natural advantages of other Concord members, but you demonstrate exceptional psychological resilience. Where others reach their limits and stop, you continue. We call it determination, Ilara said simply. The Draconians have a similar concept, Krex offered. We call it Caltech, the fire that burns beyond fuel. Thaxis cleared his throat. The Academy Council has decided to revise its training protocols based on yesterday's events, and he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Earth will be offered 3 additional positions in next cycle's class. The implication was clear. Humans had proven themselves worthy of further consideration. After they left, Ilara closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. She had come to the Academy to prove that humans belonged among the stars, to show that what they lacked in natural advantages, they made up for in spirit and determination. 1 day down, just 529 more to go. A small smile crossed her face as she imagined the next trial. Whatever it was, she would face it. Whatever pain it brought, she would endure it. Not because humans couldn't break. They could, just like any species, but because breaking and continuing weren't mutually exclusive. It was the lesson Earth had learned throughout its violent history, through countless wars, disasters, and setbacks. Humans broke all the time. They just refused to stay broken. And that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest strength.